How's it going, everybody? In this video, I'm going to show you some budget options for green ramp. I'm going to start off with these 3 elves. Each are 1/1 creatures that when you tap, you get 1 green to your mana pool. The Tribe Scout's pretty cool because it's a 1/1. When you tap it, you can put a land card into the battlefield from your hand. These next 2 cards are pretty good when you combine them with enchantments that target lands. You can untap those lands, and that's how you get a lot of ramp. The Tribe Elder is better than the Elk, however, they both do something similar. You can sacrifice them and search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield. Wall Roots is good because it has Defender and a pretty high toughness. In each turn, you can put a negative counter on it to add 1 to your mana pool. Devoted Druid is good because you can add 1 green to your mana pool. You can also put a negative counter on it and untap it. Then you can tap it again to add another green to your mana pool. There are some ways to remove these negative counters from creatures as well as add additional counters. This card can work very well in those decks. As long as Paradise Druid is untapped, it has hexproof. Definitely nice to have to ensure that you're at least getting some value out of it. The Beast Caller can be explosive because it has haste, allowing you to immediately tap for mana. However, it can only be casted on creature spells. Both of these cards are 1/1 elves. When they enter the battlefield, you search your library for a land to put onto the battlefield. The Farhaven Elf does limit you to only basic lands, while the Rejuvenator can be any land. The Dryad is a similar effect, however you can only search for a forest, and you can put this forest on any player's field. This card does have Forest Walk, so there might be some situations where you want to put it onto your opponents. And Wood Elves is similar because you search your library for a forest card and put it onto the battlefield. Here's some Enchanted Lands as we discussed a little earlier. Wild Growth can be put onto a land, and whenever it's tapped, you get an additional green. Fertile Ground costs 2 mana, however, whenever the land is tapped, you get to add 1 of any color. And whenever the land is tapped with Overgrowth, you get 2 additional green mana. If you control less than 4 lands, you can use Edge of Autumn to search your library for a basic land and put onto the battlefield. You can also cycle this card by sacrificing a land. Rampant Growth is a pretty well known spell. 2 mana, search your library for basic land, put onto the battlefield. And we have Explore, you get to play an additional land and draw a card. These 3 cards are quite similar, allowing you to search for 2 basic lands. You put 1 on the battlefield and 1 in your hand. However, for Nisa's Pilgrimage, if there are 2 or more instances or spells in your graveyard, you search your library for up to 3 basic forest cards instead of 2. Circuitous Root allows you to search for 2 basic lands or gate cards and put them both onto the battlefield tapped. Search of Tomorrow is nice because you can suspend it instead of paying the mana cost. Explosive Vegetation is quite similar to Circuitous Root, except you can only search for 2 basic lands, not gates. Next up is Crowsun Tusker. The mana cost is kind of high, however, the idea of this is you're going to cycle it. So for 3 mana, you're going to discard this card, you're going to draw a card, and whenever you cycle this card, you search your library for basic land and put that card into your hand. This card works good in some decks, however, in others it might not be as beneficial. For Veronis Monument, our green creature spells cost 1 generic less to cast. Whenever we cast a creature spell, another target creature gets +2/+2 and gains trample. Just another way to reduce our mana cost on our creatures. Heart Expedition has landfall, so whenever land enters the battlefield, we put a counter on this card. When this gets 3 counters, we can sacrifice it and search our library for 2 basic lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. I think this card helps you go over the top, however, for early game ramp, it might not be as beneficial. There are definitely some other cards I might have missed down below, so let me know. I ignored any cards that were above $3. I also decided not to add any cards that were above 4 mana. This is because when I think of ramp, I want cards that are 1, 2, 3 mana. This way I can get my game plan going, get those cards that I need out. Anyway though, let me know down below some cards I missed. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Take care.